guys, welcome to the show. We are here today on Forza Horizon 5 with a selection of cars for a showdown. This is kind of the age-old battle of old versus new, although we've got kind of a few different eras of track cars. Well, I say track cars. We've got a couple of race cars in the form of the 330p, well, 330p4, GT40, the classic Jag. Then we've got kind of the track-based road cars. We've got the sort of 2000s. We've got a 911 in here. We've got a Sagaris. We've got some modern competitors. I know the M4 is ugly, and I'm driving that one and had to have it in highlighter yellow. But I have an M4. There is also an RCF track edition. We're back to the 2000s with a 360 Challenge. There's a Ferrari F40. We have an M3 GTR, less, whatever the thing's called, and a Jag XK RS GT, and a Ferrari 288 GTO, which was kind of a race car that never really got to race. So we have an interesting selection, a mixture of kind of track cars from all sorts of different eras. Essentially, they get heavier the more modern they get, and we are going to see what is fastest from this lot. And everybody has to look at a very ugly BMW. I'm not too sorry about that, really. I have to look at the back of it because I'm driving it. So, we head to the Estoril circuit for our first race. I had no idea what to expect in all of this. I have one of the higher PI cars in terms of the M4, but it is pretty close between a lot of these vehicles. I mean, both me and the Lexus actually starting alongside each other are going to be far heavier than a lot of the field. The Jag's probably, the XKRS is probably not particularly light. But of course, they're a lot more modern. They've got a lot more tech inside of them than you get from the likes of a 288 GTO, for example. It's certainly a lot more composed than the likes of the GT40. The gearbox in the GT40 and the 330p4 could be an issue, but they're very light. They will be very low drag as well for straight line speed. One thing they have done with this, because it is an option in the game, is we've got like the M performance parts on the car. They don't really make a huge amount of difference, but we've got the strange quad exhausts. Now don't get me wrong, quad exhausts can be kind of cool on cars. I just don't feel like the M4 is really the one for it, and especially not in a weird shape. No, it's not for me. Callaway Sledgehammer, it kind of works on that. M4, not so much. We are battling alongside the 330, and we are not going to be able to get past the M3 on the way through here. We had a little bit of a slide early on. Oh, the 911's visiting some scenery. We're going to have to sneak past a lot of cars here. We were in the right place to capitalise there. To the inside of some cars. The Sagaris is having a look, but there is not going to be space for the TVR there. Okay, let's get onto the start finish. Right, there goes the GT40 itself. The Lexus has pretty much followed me through the pack at the moment, which is we are faster than the Lexus in a straight line. We are absolutely ditching the Lexus in a straight line. The M4's got some good pace down here. It is the XJ that is leading the way. Not the car that I expected to be leading the way, but there we go. Porsche's found a way past the Ferrari, both struggling with understeer through there. We've carried a lot more speed. Oh, can we duck underneath? Maybe try and sneak a pass. Massive squabble going on behind us. Do I outrun the F40 in a straight line? Barely, but we have got the move completed. We lost a bunch of time, though, fighting side by side through there. The 911 all sorts of crossed up. We again get a good exit. The F40's got a good run as well, though, so we're going to gain a place and maybe lose a place. Depends on if the Ferrari can get this move completed. Doesn't look like it quite can. But we have got good composure in this car. I will give it that. I mean, okay, it is clearly heavier than some of the other cars around it. It doesn't actually feel too bad to drive, which I am impressed with here. It is a bit of a tall order, perhaps, to chase down the GT40 and the XJ15, or whichever, I can never remember letters and numbers that go with the Jag, and then I've outbraked myself immediately, as has basically everybody behind. The F40 was having a half look, never really going to be able to get past there. We almost end up in trouble. The 360 Challenge is climbing up through the field. I'm driving the M4 because I've not driven it in a video yet. It is not my favourite car from this selection. That would be either the Lexus or the 360 Challenge. So I've gone for something a little bit different. And while it is hideous, it doesn't drive too badly. I will give it that. The GT40 is going to be a handful through that twisty section. The F40 has got more pace. It is to the inside. My idea is going to be to duck underneath it as we go through here. It might not quite be enough. So we haven't got the straight line speed to outdo the GT40, although we do have the drive off the corner. Maybe some slightly laggy old turbos going on there. Problem is we've got a 360 Challenge and a Lexus and a 330 P4 now all lining up. This is going to be a hell of a tussle over the last spot on the podium as we will dive down into turn 1. Oh, well, the F40 picked the wrong way to go. I was struggling to get stopped, and then, well, everything else kind of ended up out wide, or ended up kind of restricted where we could go. The Lexus is having a look. We've got a good run on both of them here, down this back straight. Not going to find a way through here at all. Unfortunately, the 360 Challenge is probably a little bit better through these corners than we are. Although we get through the chicane very nicely. I mean, the more they fight each other, the better it is for us. We can get our car back involved in this. I had a wheel on the dirt as we went to turn in there. That was not so good for me. Alright, change of direction as nicely as possible. Let the 360 Challenge slide about and we will slot in between them. That will do nicely, thank you very much. I'd be amazed if we don't outrun the 360 Challenge down a straight. The 330 P4 is definitely going to outrun us when it gets going. It's just can it put its power down? Will the gearbox work? We don't outrun the 360 by as much as I would have liked. The Lexus is right behind us as we head on to the final lap of the race. So we're not catching the Jag, or we're not catching the GT40. I don't think our pace was actually that far, perhaps, off them, but we got ensnared in battles. The F40 was unlucky in all of that, because it clearly was very fast here. Just can't match that 360 through the corners. I mean, we're certainly stable in this. We will get it slowed for the chicane. Back end does want to let go a little bit there as we run out a smidge wide. I think pretty much everybody in this group did very, very similar things. We will try and get it slowed neatly for these final couple of corners, and we will have a 330 P4 having a dive. I think it had a go at the Lexus and didn't quite get it stopped in time. You know, the Lexus' main Achilles heel seems to be its straight line speed. It was a great race. It was a great race. We fought very hard. In the end, we could only manage 4th place. Just didn't have the grip of the 360 Challenge or the two XJ13, sorry, at the front. The two classic race cars. I mean, we were not a million miles off in terms of lap time. It was very close in the mid-pack. It was very, very close indeed. But the Jag would take victory ahead of the GT40. So far, the old cars are definitely doing very well. So, we head to the festival circuit for our next race. We have a relatively nice spot on the grid. I mean, so this track pretty fast. You're going to want some decent. If a track's going to be for a power car, a top speed car, this is going to be the one. If you are lacking straight line speed, you might get found out here. I have a feeling we're going to be, again, not too bad, but I do think we're going to struggle against the likes of that. The XJ13, I think, is just going to be too fast. Like, we can carry some okay corner speed, but I think the acceleration maybe is where we lose out almost to something like that. Because, I mean, power to weight ratio is just so much better in it, and while we are more controllable in the corners, it's not enough. It's not enough that we can make up. We will dive onto the bridge. We are a little bit stuck. 288 GTO, not quite able to carry the same amount of speed that you can in the M4. Now, the F40, we might have made it difficult for that Ferrari at the Estoril circuit. I don't know whether we can continue to do that feat. It's the great classic battle up at the front here. We have got to run. Sagaris outran by an M4 does surprise me. Is it going to have a look to the inside? It's still there. And it's going to make us go the long way round, and we're going to run into a Ferrari-sized roadblock in front of us if we're not careful. The 360 Challenge has made a move and is past the F40. We have got great grip in the final corner. The 288 is just understeering and ploughing wide through there, and it is getting a bit swamped by the pack. Turn 1, the Jag is all over the place. Sagaris wanted us to hurry up. I mean, there is a limit of what I can do with the M4 through there. Although the Sagaris, I guess it kind of outturns us mid-corner, but just can't live with the M4 in terms of acceleration. The 360 is going to have a look to the outside onto the bridge. Oh, but we're going to slide and we're going to end up blocking everything. Make the M4 wide. You're going to have to be a very wide M4 here. That can go to the outside if it wants to look for a way past. I mean, we're getting bopped by everybody. I mean, you know, it's short. We should outrun the Porsche down a straight through here. We have been having to make a wide defensive car work. It's just not quite good enough, I don't think. And I think that's just going to be the crux of the matter, is that this is just not quite going to be good enough. Oh, that's a bit too much understeer there. It's kind of been a frustrating race, this one, in that we've just kind of been pushed around by a lot of cars when we just don't quite have. We have speed, but it's not really in useful places, I think, is the problem for us, as we're not quite quick enough accelerating to battle with the classic cars. We're not quite fast enough through the corners to battle with things like the 360 Challenge. So yeah, we kind of just end up in then we get a big slide coming off the bridge. I was surprised actually that this was faster at the Estoril circuit than it is here. That does surprise me. I would have thought this would have been more of a kind of weak track for it. The GT40 has just got too much speed for us here. That could go and battle with the F40. Well, if it can get stopped, of course, we will get the power down. Here comes the Lexus. We know the Lexus struggles with straight line speed a little bit. So I mean, that's kind of in a similar boat to us, really. When we get it right through that final corner, it can be very fast. It's probably about the only corner where we've shown significant speed, unfortunately. Oh, GT40 having big trouble into turn 1. That is it's a real handful. I mean, you would expect it to be at the end of the day. It's a car from the 60s going up against very, very modern machinery. I mean, you know, the F40 is incredibly modern in comparison to the GT40, and then we've got this thing. We have caught up. Ewan's struggling with the Porsche a little bit at the moment. We have caught up to that. I do expect the GT40 will pass us again. The 330 P4 is continuing to lead the way. We will head into the hairpin and try and get the car off the corner. It's almost like just don't bother fighting the GT40 at this point. It's just too fast. Don't bother fighting it and hope that it makes a mistake somewhere. I think is going to be our best chance. Porsche's back past the F40. I mean, we are kind of in this group, and me and Liam are desperately trying to join this group if we can. We can. It's here. This is where we make all of our speed, is through the final corner. The GT40 will go across to defend. That's fine. Will it be able to get stopped into turn 1? Nope. Me and Liam are doing the same thing that we've done all race. Only Liam outhandles me. I outpower the Lexus. We know the GT40 is going to fight back straight away as we head down across the bridge. He's going to have a dive. That would be a brave move, and we've ended up in the wall. It's going to say, I don't know quite. Yeah, the GT40 can't outbrake the modern cars. I don't know why you go for a move there. You're better off going for a move on the exit of this one. Well, you can try and pin us down there. Again, there's almost no point. Don't bother going around the outside. You've got the straight line speed. That's where the battle's going to be won. It's kind of, yeah, I mean, the battle against the Ford has sort of cost us a chance of really going up against the F40 or the Porsche that was kind of close and then escaped away a little bit. Now, if those two go side by side and make a mess of this final corner, I could maybe grab both of them, but they don't. They sorted out fairly sensibly, and there was nowhere for me to go in that one. We beat the Lexus. Yeah, a bit of a frustrating race, really. It just didn't quite have the car under us to do much more than that. I mean, like, lap time wise is good. Lap time is up there with the 360, but the thing is, it's only a couple of tenths between all of us. The RCF was quicker than the 360 by a very small amount. Not a match for the top two, but from third back was unbelievably close. The 330 P4 takes victory in that one ahead of the XJ13, with that 360 rounding out the podium. Up next, we have got the drag race portion alongside the RCF. Well, that's good, because that's probably what I'm going to be rivaling. I'm not expecting the M4 to do great here. I mean, the classic race cars, they've been very fast in a straight, and they're going to do well here. The P4, the GT40, the XJ30. I don't think I'm going to be getting close to those. If we're not... Well, the M3 is here. That'll probably be last. It's not very fast down a straight here. It's not a terrible launch. And there goes everything. It's not a terrible launch for us. It's the cars we were around. No, everything's gone better than us. Classic cars are off into the... Well, actually surprisingly good in this one. The TVR is pulling on us. The Jag is pulling on us. We are pulling away from the Lexus and the M3, which is something that is so far gone into the distance. I think it will level out. I think we will start catching the Porsche and the Ferrari. Indeed, we are now as it gets up to 160 mile an hour. I actually expected the TVR to be quicker than that. We are going to pass the TVR. We were catching the Ferrari and the Porsche, but not quick enough. It's kind of what I expected. It's better than the Lexus, to be fair to the BMW there. The 9th place is all we could manage. The Jag would take a victory from the GT40. The 330 is in 3rd. Then we have the other two Ferraris, the F40 and 288. I mean, they were just so far gone from us. It's a big gap. The Jag up in 6th, not bad showing for that. The 911G, I'm surprised by. I think the launch helped it quite a lot in that, but... I am surprised by that. We're there, head of the Ferrari. We were catching, but we just ran out of time. TVR also surprised that far down from the Sagaris. And then we have the RCF and the M3. For our final test with the vehicles, we are off to the, well, stay with the drag strip. It's the 0 to 100 to 0 test. So it tests launch, tests acceleration, and tests braking of the vehicles. Again, I mean, if you're not great at the drag race, you're probably going to struggle / suffer a little bit here. For us, the BMW is about as perfect a run as I can get with this car. It flicked to 100, slam on the brakes. I mean, it gets stopped very quickly. The brakes are powerful, but the car is big and heavy. And that is the problem part. The M3, that would run next. We're expecting it not to be great here. It's just been that little bit down on power compared to the other cars. It's not quite going to get... It's close. We've certainly seen a lot bigger gaps when it comes to these, but it isn't going to be challenging the M4. The TVR, as I said, this is one that just kind of surprised me in some ways. It struggled a little bit for straight line speed, which is odd. Thing saying about a TVR, but it is light, and that could well work in its favour. It's on the brakes. It's close to the M4. It can't quite beat the M4, but yeah, it is very close between the pair of them. I did expect the TVR's acceleration to be greater than that. The Jag, this thing was quite good. It sounds amazing. Quite good in the drag race. So we're expecting the 0 to 100 bits to be good. Or the brake... Okay, the brakes, it's good. Is the answer to that question. It stops very nicely indeed for that Jag. That's a considerable distance. And that is one of the more modern cars. It's probably the best of the modern cars here. The Ferrari, one of the less powerful vehicles here, but it is light. It's proved to be very good handling on the circuits, and the brakes are good. Brakes are powerful. It can't quite beat that Jag, but it's comfortably beaten the M4. That's quite a big gap. I mean, it is what we have been seeing. The Lexus will run next. Now, this, of course, much more along the lines of the BMW, the closest competitor to that M4. It's powerful brakes. It was a little bit of wheel spin on the start, and maybe a little lock-up, although difficult to tell what's a slightly laggy game. It's close, again, between the RCF and the BMW, but it will go the way of the M4. 288 hasn't not been great at the races, but does have some good straight-line speed. Again, another vehicle relatively light in comparison to quite a few vehicles that are here. It howls its way down the drag strip. It's on the brakes early. The brakes just aren't good enough. And that's understandable at the end of the day. It's a much older car than the likes of the Jag, for example, so it has got much older brakes. Porsche surprisingly good in the drag race. I didn't expect it to be quite where it was. It is good off the line. Of course, rear engine gives it some good traction. The braking performance from the car, though, not great. Surprising, but yeah, the braking performance was just not up there. It was, it gets stopped. It's close, but it can't beat the M4. The F40 to run next will launch itself away from the line. We're expecting this to be pretty good here. It's on to the brakes and it is stopped. That's a hell of a benchmark. It is one hell of a benchmark for the subsequent cars to try and beat well clear of the Jag. Yeah, that's mighty, mighty fast. Now, the race cars, we know they've got fantastic top end, but they struggle off the line, and the long gears could be a problem. Combine that with some old brakes. It is on the brakes, and you can see how much the GT40 is struggling to get slowed down. I mean, it's still good. It's still going to beat the M4, but it can't beat the Jag. The F40 still has the lead. I mean, this is similar things we're expecting to see here from the likes of the 330 P4. I mean, it went up against the Ford. It was the similar long gears. It's on the brakes, nicely stopped, and it will beat the Jag this time around. But you can see how much they struggle to be getting slowed down. And I think it's those. While the F40 does have that turbo lag and everything, it's a little bit better gear ratios than the cars it's racing against. We know this has been very, very quick. The Jag, it is time to see if it is going to be. It's the only thing left to try and beat the F40. Will it be able to do it? It is on the brakes, and it cannot. It can't even beat the 330 at the end of the day. So there we go. In fact, it's very, very close with the Jag. It's, I think, the Jag might have it just. It's incredibly close. But I will say the field spread on this one is actually pretty good. We've seen a lot bigger field spread. You know, the difference between the F40 that will claim victory and the M3, it is closer than quite a few. So the F40, it's quite a resounding victory, actually. Gotta say, surprised, but a hell of a victory. I mean, perhaps most impressive is that Jag. Wasn't expecting to see it mix it up there with the classic race cars. The Ferrari is second, and I'm not 100% sure. I think the Jag will get it. The camera angle is, no matter how much I've spun the camera about, it's trying to get everything perfectly level. I think the Jag, actually they're both Jags, of course. I think the XK will get it. The modern one will beat the XJ13, but it's so close. The F40, the GT40 a little further down. The 360 Challenge would beat out the 288 GTO, but that whole cluster there together is very close. There's a gap between the 288 and then the sort of secondary group, so to speak. We have got the M4 does beat the Sagaris, which in turn beats the Lexus that beats the 911 at GT3. Very close, that little group of cars. And then it's a little bit of a wander down to find the M3. And while this camera angle does make it look like a big gap, honestly, like the overall cluster between this lot isn't too bad, especially considering the M3 GTR we know is likely. This is really not the thing it's going to be good at in this field whatsoever. It struggled a little bit, but there we go. That is that. And on to the points table, it would be, well, victory for the classic cars by a long way. In fact, there are 80 points available the way I do these showdowns, and the XJ13 got 70 of them. That thing was a monster. It might not be the nicest car to drive. I mean, the same goes. The 330 P4 would take second with the GT40 in third. So Russell Series and Longbow, all with those classic cars. They're all very difficult to drive. They're not the nicest cars to drive, but they are very fast when you get it right. And at the end of the day, they are just too fast for the rest of us. The F40, driven by Mute, would get fourth. Not the best at the circuits, but very fast when it came to the straight line speed stuff, and certainly could be competitive. Gliska is essentially the best of the newer cars. The 360 Challenge would get fifth. Then it would be me with the M4, but we are some 11 points behind the 360 Challenge. The M4, I mean, it put on a fight. It wasn't bad to drive, and that was the thing. It was a nice enough car to drive, but it's just not quick enough compared to these. Chris would get the XKRS into 7th, and considering that disconnected in the first race, that's a hell of a showing, actually, from that car. Ewan's Porsche would be in 8th, ahead of the 250 GTO in 9th. Liam would get the Lexus into 10th. When at the back, we would have Amy with the TVR that just surprisingly struggled for speed. I think it was not as fast a straight line as you would expect a TVR, while Impega would round out the table with that M3 GTR. Good handling car, but in this field, it just doesn't have the speed, essentially, of the rest of them. So as far as conclusions go on the whole old versus new, well, quite clearly the older track cars were faster. Yeah, the GT40, 330p4 and so on were full-on race cars, but they were road-going versions. Of them, we can only use what we have access to, of course, in Forza. And yes, they were very difficult to drive, there's no doubt about it. We watched Longbow slide around and have difficulties with that GT40 at the festival circuit, but they were just too fast. I personally have never really liked how the XJ13 drives. It doesn't suit me, but when you get it right, they are unstoppably fast. And the M4, the RCF, just could not match that, not even really get close to, to any of that. Now, you would be right in saying, sure, the M4 and the RCF are nice cars to drive. They're quite easy cars to drive. But the thing is, the 360 Challenge is an easy car to drive. It's a very nice car to drive. The 911 GT3 is also an easy car to drive. And, you know, they were both quicker. I mean, okay, the GT3 struggled a little bit around the circuit. The 360 Challenge was comprehensively faster than everything else. The F40 was a little bit difficult to drive, but has so much straight line speed it could make up for it. At the end of the day, the modern track cars, they were just too heavy. The XKRS maybe a little bit more of a happy medium between power and handling and so on, but even then that wasn't going to be beating the 360. It might beat the M4. I think some places the Jag would be stronger, some places the M4 would be stronger, but they were never going to be beating the 360 Challenge. The modern cars were just a little bit too heavy, that little bit too sluggish around the tracks. So yeah, the victory has to go to the old cars. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.